All right. This will be a fun one for me to do right now because I'm going to talk about my favorite style of music, hip hop. First, I'm going to talk about the golden era of hip hop, is what it's called nowadays. Um, all right. I could talk all day about the origins of hip hop and all that stuff, but that's something that I'm not an expert on. I'm not an expert on the Bronx and the boroughs. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna skip that. No disrespect to any of the founding fathers of hip hop, but I'm not gonna speak about things I don't know about or things that I've heard about. I'm going to speak about things that I've experienced as a musical fan and as a person who became a musician. So, when it comes to the early days of what I'll call the West Coast hip hop, I was an easy guy. NWA, Snoop Dre, Warren G, Nate Dogg. I later got into like the Houston stuff, like Scarface, and all kinds of shit, man. South Central Cartel, Tupac, BG Knockout, all them guys, man. It's just a real musical uh, movement, when it comes to the actual beats, and when it comes to the party vibe, and when it comes to saying something over a track. I think in California, in Southern California especially, there's definitely activism in the air. It's on the radios. It's really interesting how that culture is out there in Southern California. Um, so yeah, there was just some real good hip hop shit going on, and Easy E was almost like a coach in all that sense, as in he would bring together his team, and he had a huge team. He found so many people. Uh, if you look up all the acts that were associated on Ruthless Records, and then who then branched out off of Ruthless Records, in other ways, I mean, the list is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Uh, I was watching some of the Alonzo, not without Alonzo stuff, and that actually put together some of the pieces of the puzzle that I had, because when you listen to that West Coast hip hop stuff, you could tell that it's not just somebody snapped their fingers and made it happen. This was something that was in motion for a long time, and Alonzo Williams was saying how he helped throw a little bit of cement on that highway, and I think that it's important for people to know that. You know what I mean? Even if Alonzo does kind of seem like a little bit of a bullshitter, you know what I'm saying? He's obviously not bullshitting about that with the club scene and all that stuff. So yeah, Cube and all. There's so many guys. DOC names are gonna keep popping into my head, as I'm doing this or whatever. But so when you mix the funk and you mix the old soul music and a little bit of reggae here and there with an up tempo beat, and you talk about some party shit, and then you switch it up. You talk a little bit about some conscious stuff or some activist stuff or really say something stuff. There you go. There's your formula for reality rap and what became gangster rap, as the media called it. Because them guys didn't call it gangster rap. They called it reality rap when the shit started popping. So, yeah. So now we're gonna switch gears here, and I'm gonna talk about what's changed with hip hop. All right. Now I'm gonna go right down this list. All right. First off, I'm gonna start with this: the smartphones. When people talk about technology, a lot of times they don't talk about where the technology comes from. A lot of this technology, this new stuff that's supposedly, oh, we don't know where it's coming from, it's actually made in underground bunkers by mixing low vibrations and low frequencies with technology. So when you listen to modern hip hop, whatever you want to call this shit, millennial hip hop, you hear that low frequency or that low vibration in these trap beats. And at times it might sound cool, but really, in all reality, it's just not. It's not. It's a fucking disgrace. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna now break down for you the other reasons why hip hop is where it's at. I mean, listen to me when I say this. I'm glad that hip hop is still going, but I'm not a fan of the new stuff. I prefer the old stuff. So, um, radio changed a lot, you know? Like, radio seems like they will not play good music all around, not just hip hop, but it just seems like when you really listen to radio nowadays, you're going to get all this, like, auto tune shit or, stuff that sounds so polished and shitty that I don't even call it music, you know? Um, there was a generation change, you know, the millennials are definitely not entertainment experts or anything like that. Some of these guys, they don't even really know stuff that they should know, you know? Uh, just because I was born in '84 doesn't mean I don't know music from 1969 or 1950 or the '40s. You know what I'm saying? I'm a student of music. You know, I'm a student of entertainment. You know, so yeah, I mean, people got to do their research and really figure it out. And I feel for them too because sometimes you could only get certain stories from parents or old heads or friends that were there, stuff like that. So there needs to be a lot more mentoring going on. Now I'm gonna go right down the list here. Okay, there's also been region changes. Like back in the day, like if I like music from Southern California, there was region changes back then too. Like different areas would pop up and represent their sound or their music or their lyrical approach, stuff like that. And there's different regions going on today and different like Atlanta. Atlanta's had a long legacy, a long empire of hip hop. There's some stuff down there that I like. Don't get me wrong. I don't put them in the same categories with this millennial rap. It's two totally different things. Now, another thing that's changed with hip hop is there's been a lot of deaths. And that's one of the biggest problems going on in the world today is that a lot of the coolest people that we grew up either listening to or watching on TV and stuff like that are no longer here. And there's nothing that we can really do about that besides honor them. Speak good of them and connect with them, their spirit. Like for an example, like Eazy-E, Tupac, and Nate Dogg are no longer here. Those are my three favorite guys with hip hop. So hip hop has felt that. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go right down the list. CD stores closed. CD stores were great for hip hop when it was hot. You know what I mean? You go into a CD store and you can find all kinds of shit that you would have never known about. Which brings up another issue too, is that the days of entertainment expertises that would work at like a hip hop store or a video store are few and far between. So when you run into those guys, you want to really pay attention to what those kinds of guys say. And luckily, I've seen a couple, and I look up to a couple of those guys, and I'm a younger version of one of those guys. I might not be as far along as certain people, like let's say Jim Cornette in wrestling, or my man David out in California at the CD store. But I'm definitely on my way. It's something that I've always had, but I'm developing again. And TV has suffered a lot too over the years. So I mean, being an entertainment expert nowadays is not really something to be proud of. You know what I mean? The shit sucks. So strip clubs stray away from empowering music. Certain music gets a bad label, like hip hop, for being violent or disrespectful or this or that, which might, could cause fights in clubs and shit like that. But a lot of my favorite hip hop was very empowering music. You know what I mean? So you hear stuff at clubs, and you still hear like violent talk, but none of this shit is empowering. All it is just fucking leading people down the wrong way. You know what I mean? So that's something to be very, very careful about. That like because we need empowerment in today's world. You see what's going on in the world today. You see how we have a lot of fucking issues in the world today. It's not the same as it was in the late '80s and the '90s. Even though there was issues back then as well, it was twisted back then as well. The new trends that are coming out in hip hop today are fucking embarrassment. Because back in the day, people would tell you, okay, like they give you the game in songs, like, okay, yeah, we slang this dope, but you don't ever fucking do that shit. You know what I'm saying? If you want to make money, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that that's the best message to begin with, but what I'm saying is nowadays people are saying do drugs, do these hard drugs and shit. Like that's fucking stupid. You know what I mean? And what does that do for the youth? You know what I mean? What does that do for the youth? This is where the festivals came in and kind of fucked things up a little bit. You know what I mean? Because they made it cool again to experiment with drugs, and then that leads people down towards harder drugs. So I don't respect that at all. Um, the lack of freshness that is coming from Southern Cali right now with music is kind of unprecedented. Like, as in, like, you know, Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like, Hollywood has always been a big place for inspiration, and you can always catch it in waves. It always comes in waves, I should say. And there's been a lackness of that. Let alone the music scene down there. It just hasn't been happening like that. Um, yeah. So one thing I will say that I found in uh, this day and age is that one thing that is good is that with a platform like YouTube, you can pump out music and get it out there for people's ears. Now, like stuff like iTunes and shit like that, the payoff's not good, and it is what it is. But when you get something like YouTube, you could actually pump out a tremendous amount of work. And I know that Dr. Dre was saying that he sees more quantity than quality nowadays. But if you ask me, Dr. Dre hasn't been doing nearly enough quantity. You know what I mean? Everybody would want to hear what Dr. Dre's doing, no matter if it's up to his standard or not. I mean, I want to see Dr. Dre go Stone Cold Steve Austin, but that's not going to happen. So I have to do the best I can as a hip hop historian through DJ mixes and remembering hip hop the way that it's supposed to be remembered, telling that history. You know what I mean? Through DJing and through these kinds of I don't know, lectures or whatever the fuck this shit is. I'm just trying to make sure that the history is told properly, but at the same time, I'm trying to point out the things that need to be focused on in order to change it in a good way and bring it back. You know what I mean? And it's not just hip hop. It's fucking a lot of things in the world right now. It's a lot of the things that I like in the world right now too, which has made it easier for me to shine a little bit. But at the same time, it's not good when people you can't tell nobody shit these days, and that's a part of the problem. You know what I mean? It's always like that with the youth, but I'm talking about the people that are really running fucking huge organizations or businesses and shit like that. If you can't tell some people shit, and they it's on them. You know what I mean? It's not on me. I'm doing the best I can. Look at what I'm doing right now. I'm gonna send this video to my Facebook friends who play hip hop music. So I'm trying. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get to the people that could actually turn things around. So, yeah. Thanks for listening.